I've been testing the new GoPro Hero 13 for the past few months, and this version of the flagship GoPro camera is the best one to come out in years. It all has to do with the new GoPro lenses. With this version of the camera, they come out with ND filters, a macro lens, and in 2025, an anamorphic lens that all improve the quality of the GoPro by a lot. In this video, I'm gonna show you how I tested the GoPro, provide comparison footage, go over main product features, and then I'm gonna talk about where I think the camera really falls short. And there are some things with this camera that really frustrate me. I've been using the Hero 13 for the past few months here in Colorado and also on a trip to the Great Smoky Mountains. I've taken this thing running, hiking, mountain biking, I've even done some vlogging. I've seen how this thing performs underwater, and I've tested the night modes. I also want to mention I've been reviewing action cameras for the past few years. This video is not sponsored by GoPro in any way. At first glance, the Hero 13 looks really similar to GoPros released in the last few years. It even has the same size sensor as the GoPro Hero 12. Now there are some recording mode differences between the 13 and the 12 that I go into more detail later. For instance, the Hero 13 has a burst slow-mo feature, but for the most part, the Hero 12 and the Hero 13 are really similar cameras. All of the excitement with the Hero 13 has to do with the accessories that GoPro released alongside of it. Now, I've said this before in my action camera reviews, where we've sort of reached this plateau with action camera development. From one camera model to the next, it's getting harder and harder to see the differences. I do think there is some really big innovation outside of the main flagship cameras that these companies are putting out. For instance, the Insta360 Go is pushing the limits of how small an action camera can get. And with the GoPro Max and Insta360 flagship models, and just 360 cameras in general, development is progressing rapidly within the 360-degree camera space. 360 cams are my go-to for POV footage. Check out this rock climbing footage. You can fit way more into the frame, especially when you're shooting for vertical video. But in my testing, GoPro's new lenses really elevate the picture quality and capabilities of this camera. It extends the camera into a far more cinematic territory, something that action cameras haven't really been able to accomplish until now. Let's get into specifically what's new with the Hero 13. So for this camera, there is an HLG HDR mode. Previously, it didn't have HLG capabilities. There's a new burst slow-mo feature that allows you to slow the camera down as slow as 400 frames per second. But at 400 frames per second, you have to shoot at 720p, and the quality isn't that good. I'll get into the specifics of burst slow-mo later. It's an awesome feature. There's an improved and new battery with better thermal management, GPS features for the GoPro, a magnetic latching system that was popularized by competitor DJI, and a lens mod auto detection feature. In my opinion, aside from the new lenses, there aren't too many differences between the Hero 13 and the Hero 12. It has the same 8x7 sensor that the Hero 12 had. In addition to the new Hero 13, GoPro releases alongside it ND filters, a macro lens mod, an update to the ultra-wide lens, and coming in 2025, an anamorphic lens. As of my testing, the anamorphic lens hasn't come out, but the demo footage and footage from other YouTubers who have tested the anamorphic lens make it look pretty impressive, but so is most marketing content from GoPro. I'm not a big fan of the ultra-wide lens, but the other lenses I thought were really cool. In my opinion, if you want to go ultra-wide, you should check out something like a 360-degree camera. You can go way wider than that, and you get way more flexibility in how you want to edit your footage. With all of these lenses, GoPro introduces a new auto detect lens feature. It's just something you can turn on in the camera, and it's what I would recommend changing your settings to. With this feature, it will automatically detect which lens you have on. If you screw on the macro lens, it will know it, but it really shines with the ND filters. If you screw on an ND filter that doesn't have the correct lighting, it will tell you to step up or down accordingly so you can put on the right ND filter for your footage. And a quick explainer on the ND filters from a not very technical camera guy, myself. ND stands for neutral density. And what these filters enable videographers to do is to reduce the amount of light that enters the camera. This is helpful for videographers because when shooting in sunny settings or specific lights, lowering the amount of light entering the camera allows you to lower your shutter speed to better align with the frames per second you are shooting with. This results in a picture that can often give a cinematic motion blur that's pleasing to the eye. Now I'm going to go into how the burst slow-mo, the macro lens, and my favorite, the ND filters, performed in my testing, and why I think these features really elevate the GoPro Hero 13 to its predecessors. All right, I'm in the Great Smoky Mountains right now and trying out the new macro lens mod on the GoPro Hero 13. The macro lens mod allows users to get really close-up shots with a subtle bokeh effect. The lens has a focus ring on the top of the lens with a flower for close-up shots and a person for far-away shots. Okay, so the focus ring is set to human. The background is all purple with the focus peaking. Now I'm switching it to flower. The background is no longer purple. I am not purple though either. I'm gonna check what's in focus in post. In my experience, the person setting puts everything in focus, much like a regular GoPro works. The flower setting makes things 11 centimeters away in focus. With the lens, GoPro has a focus peaking option that will turn certain parts of the view screen in a color outline that tells the user what is in focus. For starters, I didn't find this lens was very intuitive to use. It's hard to tell what is in and out of focus, even with the focus peaking enabled. I even tried this lens synced with the Quick app on my phone to hopefully get a better idea of what was in focus, and even with the larger screen, I had a hard time of telling what was in focus. But even with the user difficulties, I admire that this lens allows users to get a depth of field effect, something that hasn't really been available in action cameras until this lens. In general, action cameras make everything in focus, which leads to really detailed but oftentimes dull imagery. My favorite uses of this lens were detailed shots of small things, the common use of a macro lens, or videoing people's faces up close. I really liked the contrast this lens was able to produce with the background. But I have to say, this lens was not easy to use and required a lot of trial and error to understand what is in and out of focus. I wanted to see if this could be used for more vlogging scenarios, more YouTube scenarios, like talking behind a desk. And it didn't really work for that. The bokeh effect didn't really take place unless you hold the camera right in front of your face, which isn't my favorite shot. But interestingly, testing this feature outside, I was better able to dial in the focus with a shot of my face up close. Maybe it has to do with the light and the background and just things being in motion that allows the lens to work better, but I thought using this lens outside worked a little bit better than inside. Another one of my favorite updates to the Hero 13 is the burst slow-mo feature. You can only record for a few seconds with this mode, but it lets you get some really high FPS. At 5.3K 120, the shot is only 5 seconds long. At other settings, it's 15 seconds long. I loved this setting and allowed me to get some really cool slow-mo shots. At the 5.3K setting, it was sometimes difficult to get the timing right because it's only 5 seconds long, but it wasn't too bad once you got the hang of it. Here are some comparison shots of what the different FPS and video quality looks like. And for comparison, the DJI Osmo Action 5 allows you to shoot at 1080p 240 frames per second. The Hero 13 allows you to shoot traditionally at 2.7K 240 frames per second. But with burst slow-mo, it lets you shoot as slow as 400 frames per second. At first, the effect that the ND filters have is really subtle. But after playing my footage back over and over again, I'm beginning to really like what I see when you put on these ND filters. The ND filters were able to apply a slight amount of motion blur to my footage, which I thought really elevated the quality and feel of my footage. Up for a run. Testing the GoPro Hero 13 Black. Have an ND filter on it. It says ND4, which is the lowest number ND filter. This is about probably the lowest light settings that you would want to film in. I found the ND filters work best when shooting any amount of motion, but they really shine when there is a subject in frame that is steady. Take a look at these shots comparing footage of myself versus POV footage. The footage of myself has a way cooler blur effect and helps give it that cinematic feel. The POV footage still has some blur, but it's more subtle. I think these ND filters help address one issue that I've had with GoPros basically since their inception, and it's that GoPros put everything in focus and make the picture extremely sharp. It's great for stills or action footage, but in my opinion, it makes things way too detailed and almost as if it lacks emotion, which is a weird way of describing POV mountain bike footage, but most films are trying to get the viewer to feel or experience something. Now, I did a quick search on the internet, and it seems like ND filters have existed for GoPro cameras in the past, but they're all aftermarket, meaning that you would have to manually adjust the settings on the GoPro in your camera, and other action camera brands have also released ND filters. But this is the first time that GoPro has released their version of ND filters, and with the auto detect lens feature, it makes putting on these ND filters a breeze to make sure that the resulting footage is as good as possible. So, after testing the camera for the past few months, I'm impressed with the newness that this camera is able to offer. But now for the downsides. I'm a little upset that most of the new features are basically add-ons, but still require you to purchase a new camera to use. For example, the Hero 13 battery only fits on Hero 13 cameras. If you have a ton of old GoPro batteries, but you buy the new camera, you're gonna have to buy some new batteries to fit with this camera. And then, the new lenses don't fit on the old cameras. In a perfect world, it would be great if GoPro designed the lenses to fit on the old GoPro cameras, and then came out with some sort of software or firmware update that allowed you to use the auto detect lens feature on the old GoPros. But maybe there's something with the design of the camera or the lenses that I just can't see because I'm just a user of the product. But it really does feel like GoPro's pushing people to buy the new camera. I mean, I get it. It's a massive company and they're trying to sell cameras at the end of the day. If you can get past the annoying part that these lenses aren't backwards compatible, I think that the new updates to the Hero 13 make the camera really impressive. I wouldn't exactly recommend purchasing the Hero 13 if you don't plan on purchasing the new lenses. The Hero 12 and the Hero 11 work great. The features in that camera are awesome. I've reviewed them in the past. But I have to say, these lenses really elevate your footage, and if you're somebody that plans on getting a broader range of shots for your videos, these lenses make it much more capable. It's the reason why I like the Hero 13 so much more than the Hero 12 and the Hero 11. So that is it for my review of the GoPro Hero 13. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you enjoyed it, maybe consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribe. If you want to learn more about the Hero 13, I've included a link in the description, so check that out. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you next time.